News just coming in. A private jet has now landed in Maldives that is set to fly the Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa out of Malé. Rajapaksa is all set to depart from Maldives in a short while and is most likely flying to Singapore as per the local Sri Lankan press. The delay in his travel plans came after the president sought a private jet instead of a passenger plane for his escape to Singapore. Purnima Murli is there on ground zero. Purnima, so all but clear now that after the uproar in Maldives, also protests from opposition, Gotabaya Rajapaksa now moving to Singapore.
Well, that has been the report since yesterday. Remember, Gotabaya said that he will resign on the 13th of July. And after he reached Maldives, he was also looking to reach another destination and then submit his resignation, because sources say that he still had the power as a president. Therefore, only after he reaches a safer destination was he planning to send in his resignation letter. Unfortunately, they tried taking the commercial flight late last night to Singapore, but because of the kind of protests that he has seen even in Maldives, they did not want to take the commercial flight, and they decided to request the government of Maldives to arrange a private jet, because he still is the president of Sri Lanka. Only after he reaches another destination, he is planning to officially announce that he is stepping down. So right now the local media, the Sri Lankan media here, say that a private jet has been arranged and he will be leaving to Singapore shortly. Remember, there were two destinations that were doing the rounds. One, of course, is Singapore, and the other was Dubai. But Dubai had not accepted his request for a transit, and therefore he is now trying to travel in a private jet to Singapore. And whether the resignation will come in after he reaches Singapore, protesters here are still hoping that there is some good news here, so that they can celebrate their struggle, or the people's struggle is what they call it. So we'll have to wait and see whether the resignation letter will come in once his private jet takes off to Singapore.
They look very subdued, Purnima. Has the siege continued overnight by the protesters?
Well, the Prime Minister's office was stormed by protesters. That's still open for public. There were protesters trying to march towards the Parliament, but they were stopped. And the Parliament even now is heavily guarded, because they fear that it could be a repeat of what we saw yesterday. Therefore, heavy security deployment in the Parliament. Are you hopeful that today, sir? Are you hopeful that today Gotabaya Rajapaksa will resign? Are you hopeful that he will resign?
But
will Gotabaya Rajapaksa, do you think, will resign today?
no, something no problem. Okay.
So you're still waiting for that resignation?
No.
So people here are still waiting for that resignation letter, because yesterday they were planning celebrations. That did not happen. So today they are still not really believing till the formal announcement comes in from Speaker, because the Speaker repeatedly said that the President will resign before midnight. That did not happen, and now the Speaker says that he still hasn't received the resignation letter, and that he is under pressure from the opposition parties as well. But this is the gall face, and protesters here are still waiting for the news of the resignation of Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
What about Ranil Wickremesinghe? Where is he, and is the protest still having him at the center like it was yesterday?
Well, Ranil Wickremesinghe is somewhere in Colombo, is what sources tell us. But ever since the demand for the resignation of Ranil Wickremesinghe grew louder, Ranil Wickremesinghe also said that he might declare an emergency if the situation continues. The anger directed towards Ranil still continues, but they want the resignation of both Gotabaya Rajapaksa as well as Ranil Wickremesinghe. So protesters have occupied all the places, whether it's the presidential palace, whether it's the presidential secretariat that's behind me, whether it's the temple trees, or whether it's the Prime Minister's office. These are the places that are occupied by protesters, and till both resign, protesters will continue to occupy these government places. The anger towards both of them is only increasing, because both of them are refusing to step down. Gotabaya still has not submitted his resignation, so protesters here are waiting patiently to get updates on whether there would be any good news, whether they would succeed in ensuring that the president resigns. All those are now being watched by these protesters. So they will only celebrate once there is some update from Gotabaya's media team or the speaker on the resignation.
Right. Purnima, do hold on. You've also spoken to a lot of protesters. These protesters claim that this agitation is for the future generations of Sri Lanka and a message to future rulers that they cannot ruin the future of Lankans for their greed for power. Listen into some of the reactions that Purnima Murli got us from Colombo.
Why is this anger towards the government? What are the kind of problems that you've been going through because you have a child? So how difficult is the situation in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, this anger is because we don't have any fuel at the moment and no milk and day-to-day needs it's very hard to find these days. So that's why this anger and this young generation is came for here they need to say stop this greed of power because of this greed for power we are suffering from a long time.
The interesting thing to note is how protesters are also bringing their children out for protests. Yesterday, Purnima showed us when violence broke out, when tear gas shells were being fired. There were a couple of kids who got also taken in by the tear gas, but that is not deterring protesters from coming out with their family. Now, Purnima, talking about the situation right now, the protesters are waiting for some kind of an update. But is it also because now a committee has been formed to ensure that law and order situation does not deteriorate like it has yesterday and on Saturday? Could that also be a reason why the protesters are recalibrating?
Well, heavy security deployment everywhere, even at the Prime Minister's office. Even though that's now occupied by protesters, we still find the tri-forces are trying to ensure that no untoward incident takes place at the Prime Minister's office and in the Parliament, where a few protesters tried to march towards the Parliament. And once again, there were dramatic scenes that unfolded in and around the Parliament, where tear gas were fired multiple times, and also protesters tried to storm the Parliament. So now that is also heavily guarded, and here protesters say that they will continue to peacefully protest here and then wait for official announcements, and then they will celebrate, and they don't plan to march towards any other place. And Parliament too, they say, is not the right way forward. They will instead wait for some developments from Gotabaya Rajapaksa and see what the speaker has to say in terms of what next for Sri Lanka. Let's get in a word. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa still has not submitted his resignation. What are you all planning to do? Because right now, local media here says that a private jet has been arranged for him to leave Maldives to Singapore.
Yes, first they should think that protesters are here to struggle for one aim. That is, you should go with your friendly Prime Minister. I don't know how can people say this again and again and again. They have many lot of work to do. They have personal work to do. They cannot say always.
But do you expect the president to resign?
Go. Of course, yes. Of course, yes. President, you should go with your friend Prime Minister.
So if Ranil Wickremesinghe and Gotabaya, they don't resign, what do protesters plan to do next?
Next plan is we have one name. Here we have many groups, and they have one aim. Rajapaksas go home. Ranil, you should go home, resign. And till it happens, we are here with our people protecting this property.
Right. So you will all be here at the golf face and not go anywhere. Like yesterday we saw protesters marching towards Prime Minister's office. Are there any such plans, like for example the Parliament?
No plans, exact plans, because if people think we should go to the Member of Parliament's houses, if they don't help us, how can we stop that? How can we stop that protesters? It's their thought. If they do that, we are there to protect those public properties. We are there to protect our public property. Just that. If they do so, we can do nothing.
So you're going to peacefully
Of course, yes.
sit here and protest.
Lovely, peacefully protest.
So right now, protesters say that even though a section of protesters tried marching towards the parliament, that's something that they don't want to do. They want to continue protesting at the Galle Face, where protests began 97 days ago, and these have been peaceful protests so far, and they want to continue protesting peacefully to ensure that both Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe resign. Till then, they say that they are going to sit here or occupy the Galle Face, the Gota village that was set up 97 days ago. They are going to protest here and not storm other government places. So far, they've stormed the Presidential Palace, the Secretariat, the Temple Trees and Prime Minister's office. So these are the four places that they have occupied, and they say that nothing beyond this could be expected. The person we spoke to is one of the protesters who's been here for 97 days. So the word coming in from him is the official comment by the protest groups that are leading for 97 days. No such plans is what they say, that they will continue to sit here and occupy the Galle Face till both Gotabaya and Ranil tender their resignation letters.
So it looks like the protests are ebbing and flowing. We saw them reaching the peak on Saturday. Then the weekend seemed all right, things under control. Then again yesterday things went completely out of hand. But why are the protesters so agitated? Collusion of the corrupt is what they are alleging. They want to give this message to the rulers. Exactly what is being said as far as the protesters are concerned. Gotabaya stays on as a president after 13th of July deadline. That's the reality. Even though he had said that he's going to resign, that has not happened. What Lankans say, Gotabaya is refusing to give up absolute power. That interpretation is that even after your assurance, if you're not resigning, it means you're hanging on to power. Ground reality is that Lankan speaker is yet to receive the resignation of Gotabaya. He's repeatedly saying that I've been assured that resignation is coming. First it was said yesterday, we were told the resignation had been signed, then yesterday evening, then midnight, even that midnight deadline is gone. And the Lankans say promise of resigning is just an eyewash. That's how this is being said. This dilly-dallying is being interpreted. Reality is Ranil now named as acting president in Rajapaksa's absence. If you see that letter, it's very interesting. Nowhere does Gotabaya Rajapaksa say that he's resigning. He just says that while I'm away, Ranil Wickremesinghe will act as the acting president. How are Lankans seeing it? Will act as Gotabaya's lackey in his absence. Ranil's closeness to the Rajapaksa family is something that the Sri Lankans are highlighting, saying that this is just an eyewash. The real power will continue to be with the Rajapaksas, with Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So this is what they are protesting against. These are the chain of events that they are protesting against. And like Purnima was reporting, today things seem to be in favor of peaceful sit-in. That's what is happening after yesterday's taking over of Prime Minister's residence. But Purnima,